Hello, my name is Sade, the lead developer and creator of Blue Skies. As of today, it's been a whole year since development officially started. To celebrate, I've collected a ton of old development screenshots, builds, and information about the game and how it's evolved over development and where it's going. I hope you enjoy. Blue Skies has been a game that I've thought about and thinks about, made prototypes for, honestly, years at this point. Initially, back in 2023, when the game was still in its concept phase, it was pretty much an entirely different style of game, while still retaining a few similarities with the current version. It initially started as a game under the name of Ramplify, a fan game for the 2017 bullet hell game by Ian Campbell, Bleed 2. Being shown now is some of the early prototypes alongside absurdly old art that was made for it. Being a fan game and all, and my first full project, it was as most first projects fail to be, too ambitious for its own good, and eventually leading to its downfall with its development. To summarize what Ramplify was intended to be, it was, again, pretty much a fan game for Bleed 2, a bullet hell game with you playing as a robot during a war on Earth. There wasn't a lot of depth to it, and I honestly made it purely because I liked the gameplay in Bleed 2. And even as short as Bleed 2 is, a lot went into that game, a lot more than I initially realized. This eventually led to the obviously needed downscaling of the game, and with that came a complete overhaul of the game itself. The game eventually turned into Blue Skies, with its story and ideas changing well into it. Here's the earliest internal version of Blue Skies I was able to find that I originally sent to a friend. I'm pretty sure this version of the game was made just about a week or two after the game started development, and to note, this was after a fairly decently long hiatus of me working on games in general. So, to try and ease myself back into it, for all the builds until the overhaul, they used the old depreciated Unity package called Dark Tree FPS. For reference, with most if not all the assets being from that, with it being mainly used as a base and quote testing grounds I guess, in these earlier versions. Random fun fact, the original project name for this build was DeadSec, based on the very not real hacker organization from the game Watch Dogs, which I was really into at the time. It should go without having to say it, this version has a different look and with direction to its visuals. It's using a mix of a few free Unity packages for the effects, alongside a mix of post-processing stuff. Early builds like this were pretty much just me messing around, and that's pretty obvious when you look at it. You can still actively see these old versions of the Blue Skies YouTube and even Twitter accounts, where a few teaser things are posted. All of this, by the way, was made on a MacBook, mostly in my bed. Also, I'm pretty sure there's at least, 8 different ways you can get out of the map, most in the first few minutes. Like I mentioned earlier, because of all these versions of the build using Dark Tree FPS, I mainly messed around with the enemy AI alongside a decent bit of the scripts. But because I didn't have anyone to help me with modeling or even art in general, I didn't mess around with the map in the slightest. This is purely just the original map with filters and a few other minor changes. Some other kind of funny thing to note is, when I was messing around with the code for the player in this build, I somehow ended up making it so that after a decent bit of jumping and running and so on, with using stamina, it would stop regenerating. I genuinely have no recollection on how in the ever-living hell I could have possibly done that, but that is indeed something I did. Super glad that exists. Another thing to add too, in the files for this build, there is a second completely compiled Steam Deck version, which I cannot tell a single difference besides the fact that it is a lot more bright. No clue if this is more optimized or anything. Also, there is no pause menu. Like I said, this is a very early demo that was mainly messing around with scripts. I'm just trying to get back into Unity and development in general, but it certainly is one of the builds of all time. This is another internal beta that was made mainly for me to send to my friend, and again, just more messing around with Unity. First thing of note that's different here is there's an actual menu this time. Whether or not it's good is a debate for another day. That, alongside the file actually being called Blue Skies. Something obviously noticeable when loading into the game is the very big change to how it's visually looked. This is another combination of some assets alongside my own code added in. A few of the other major changes are at least a few map placement changes, although the map itself is still pretty roughly the exact same as the previous one, alongside a different enemy. This one was also preloaded into the Dark Tree FPS asset pack, but, as with the zombie AI, I did mess around with their code a bit, among other things. While this version does change a decent bit to the map, and surprisingly fixes a few of the bugs from the previous version, it honestly only makes breaking the game and getting out of the map a lot easier. Enemies practically have an infinite view range, meaning they can literally shoot you halfway across the map. Kid you not, there's literally a few areas where you can just deload the entire map. Walk forward a bit, and bam, it's back. No idea what I possibly did to the camera or occlusion culling to have it possibly, do that. But, yeah. That's pretty much all the changes from this version. Now after this one, I released this next build publicly on itch.io. Like I said, this is released publicly on itch.io and is pretty much the same version as the last, and doesn't have too many major changes besides honestly a lot of pretty funny bugs that I still have no idea how they ended up happening. A lot of deloading, memory crashing, etc. Really fun, awesome, normal game stuff. Only real things of note in this version are a slightly changed main menu, a new options button, and a credits button, with only the credits actually working. Another main thing added this version was the pause menu, which took way too long considering I added it in like literally 5 minutes. Again, there's not really a lot to note in this version besides it just honestly being very, very bad. A bit after this though, because how broken it was, I released a huge update to it, which is a bit interesting for a few reasons. To start, it completely overhauled a lot of the systems internally. It's not really visible here or even in the gameplay, but it's pretty insane how much I did in just a matter of like 2 days. I think the overall bug fix list was generally over like 50 fixes. I mean, to be fair, when you have an uncooked state, that's not really the hardest to at least actually slightly cook it. But I redid the main menu, I fixed a shit ton of the bugs, and generally I just made the game a decent better. Even if it still wasn't even slightly good at this point. But the fact is, it's still really impressive what I was able to do. Even if this version and the last really aren't in the note. But yeah, a bit after this, I reworked a lot, even including the map, using all these old store assets. This one was a smaller rework, still using, like I said, all the original store assets that were used in the old versions, but completely overhauling the map, pause menu, etc. Essentially, the same underwent a very big visual change when it was near the end of when I was truly discovering what exactly I wanted the game to look like, feel like, etc. Just what I wanted it to be in general. The absolute whiplash from seeing the overtly pixelated, hard to look at to the, okay, well, to the still pretty hard to look at one, but it had a lot more character. Felt a lot more unique, was a bit easier on the eyes, and the overall game changes themselves to the enemy AI, map design, UI, overall, set me up on the path to the current version. This was the version where I found out what I wanted Blue Skies to be down to a narrow point. It still obviously had its fair share of issues. I mean, it still used a decent bit of the old systems, ones apart from the free assets. And as much as I changed it, a lot of it was rooted deep down with tons and tons of scripts and systems that I had to learn because, frankly, I didn't understand them. There's nothing too interesting about the actual game version itself, but from a design and development standpoint, it's definitely one of the most unique, and for all the reasons I mentioned, the most interesting in like where the game is now. But a bit after this is when a major internal overhaul occurred. Back at around December or so of 2024, because a lot of these old systems, like I said, being from free assets, and me having to learn them entirely to do the most basic of adjustments, I just fully decided it wasn't worth it to continue working with these. It would literally take less time to work on a completely new, from the ground up version, rather than continuing to work with the bits that weren't actually mine and I didn't understand. So I just overhauled the entire game. Eventually, I ended up adding more than what I needed to replace, added new assets, and alongside that, rewrote the entire story too from the ground up, making it more substantial with a more clear focus, goal, and just generally better written. And that's a lot of what the current version of Blue Skies is, and that's what I've been working on, alongside adding more and more to the most physically complete collection of systems, to be able to fully hands-on work on this game. And while it does suck I had to start from scratch after like half a year of development, I'm going to be honest with you, there wasn't really a lot worth keeping in the previous versions. Though I think that was made obvious enough with the very clear lack of quality in the old versions. I mean, hey, they were made using things I didn't understand, and I could go on and on for the reasons, but all that really matters is the current state of the game, and where it is now. And I honestly couldn't be any more proud of the direction it's going. We've still got a decent bit until I actually say the game's fully done, and I want to wait and make sure that everything is perfectly just perfect. But yeah. Overall, really all of Blue Sky's and Ramplifies had a huge part in shaping how the current game looks, feels, and everything. Even if a lot of old versions look completely different, it's honestly crazy where the game started in terms of development, and where it's gotten now. And I'm really glad for all the people who have supported me along the way, and hopefully continue to support me all the way up until release. As an extra little thingy, when going back through old messages with a few friends of mine, I found a lot of old screenshots, development stuff, stuff like that in general. You can find all the ones that I found in a Google Drive that's linked in the description of the video. I hope you enjoyed the little anniversary video, and have a good day.